So smart meters, very simply, the way we look at it, is a data play, right? Earlier with normal meters, all you had was a number of units consumed. You did not know when these units were consumed, you had no insight into that, right? It was in effect a data desert. So with smart meters, what you essentially get right now is granular insight into when electricity is consumed, and you get real-time insight into that data. Renewable energy faces this problem for intermittency. Your consumption curve doesn't match up with your production curve. So very simply, you can have something like a time-of-day tariff, which is a congestion pricing. So whenever you have renewable energy production at max, you reduce the prices, so you encourage consumption at that point. And whenever renewable energy production drops off, you increase prices to discourage consumption. This is how you bring more renewable energy online. Another thing, a very Indian thing on why you need smart meters is quite honestly just the amount of theft or loss of electricity that's happening currently. So just to give you a number, of every 100 units of electricity that discoms sell in India, or at least distribute in India, they're only able to collect revenue for 77 units, right? So 22, 23 units is a loss for them. So at the very beginning, you start off with a loss. So with smart meters, if you're able to even cut down on this loss by a little, it's not only an environmental play and you're bringing on more renewable electricity, but it's also a social play because you're making an essential commodity cheaper for people to consume. Because right now they're paying not only for the electricity they consume, but also for the electricity that's lost or stolen. So now, after that, let's move into why now. I mean, everybody knows about, I think, here knows about the recent union government scheme that is pushing a lot of interest into the sector. It's a carrot-led approach in the form of grants. But now let's look into the crux of what's happening here, right? Because it's not just money that's going out that's encouraging people to get in. Because the biggest risk here has always been the counterparty risk. How do you deal with discoms? Now, they've taken a unique approach to fix this. That's through what we call the SBD4. Quite simply, it's a very interesting document in that it seeks to eliminate all of these usual concerns that you have in dealing with discoms. Now, there are a few key features here. I know all of you will probably have your eyes glued to the discom over there, the bankruptcy risk. We'll get to that in the next slide. But now, just looking into the main features, one is your payment. Right? Now, most places, you have a problem with actually recovering payment from discoms. What they've done here is they've essentially given the smart meter players direct access to consumer payments. So unlike even a conventional escrow, where you might have some people try to game it, here, whenever a consumer makes a payment to the discom, it directly flows to the smart meter player. So you have direct flow of payments, and you have a good cover, a 5x cover over payments. So whenever you raise a bill, you automatically, in essence, are paid by the consumer themselves, right? So it's more of a user pay model in that sense, though in effect the discom is paying for it.
So let me also explain. There's a difference between escrow and direct debit. Okay, and this is a very important thing. Escrow would mean that money goes to the discom, and then it's incumbent on discom to transfer that money to an escrow account, which is what is happening in certain concessions which have not adopted direct debit. Okay, now that's very different. Versus here, where all the online payment are automated, and they go into a direct debit, like an automation account, and then they go into and then they're disputed automatically through waterfall. So there is no discom intervention here. There is no question discom may put the money or doesn't put it. Now that's very important. I think other bit is, I don't know, you want to cover this 5x cover. Let's say if you have a 1 rupee of payable to the smart meter player, you must have at least 5 rupees or $5 for cover in the direct debit facility. We looked at the numbers exactly. I think the biggest challenge everybody has been saying is that what happens if the discom goes bankrupt, okay? Utility bankruptcy risk is the biggest. I don't deny that, of course. These are the people who've been on the verge of bankruptcy, but they've never really gone bankrupt, okay? But never mind the fact that the government of India keeps bailing them out. What happens if it doesn't, okay? Singapore can also go bankrupt, it can happen, right? You can't rule it out, Sigrid. But if it does, okay, what happens in that eventuality, okay? In that eventuality, we need to understand how does the insolvency scheme work. The Indian insolvency laws are very clear. It is incumbent on the resolution professional. Suppose it goes in bankruptcy. The resolution professional is obliged to ensure that the going concern nature of a business is always maintained. There are judgments and judgments and judgments on this, okay? Which means you cannot stop the running business of a company. So let's say if Discom has gone bankrupt, it would be stupid. I think, the DISCOM will be and the government will be stoned to death if they say that I will stop the meter payments because the meter supplier will stop supply. There will be no electricity in the segment. So legally, there is a DISCOM bankruptcy risk, no doubt, but practically it seems impossible. Even legally, by the way, insolvency professional is obliged to ensure continuation of day-to-day activities. He cannot stop it. The law is very clear on this. So I think, and then you look at the 5x cover, 20x cover. I think if you look at it holistically, you'll realize that it's a pretty safe play where revenues start coming on day one.
So this is quite an interesting point that Rucha just briefly touched on. It's about the revenue cycle itself of a concession. It's a small concession going by other infra players. It's only a maximum of 10 years. But what's very interesting here is you start revenue generation practically from day one. So you have a 5-6 month planning period. As soon as you start installing meters, you start generating meters. So this, you can effectively recycle cash and your cash requirements come down very low. So we ran the numbers in some of these model concessions out there, and what we found was around 20+% of your total costs can be recovered just during the construction phase. So what does it mean? So one, when it comes to debt, it's still being implemented, but a lot of lenders have warmed up to the idea of using these revenues as counting these revenues as contribution towards equity. So your debt to equity ratio gets a bigger boost there. You'll have to put up lower amounts of equity. So now let's take a look at the revenues itself, right? So unlike infra play like roads or even renewables, where your revenues are dependent on, let's say, how many units of electricity can you generate or how many vehicles pass through your road, here your revenue is fully protected from day one. You bid for a contract for, let's say, 100 rupees. No matter what, you get 100 rupees. The risk distribution is very simple. Pre-installation of meters, the smart meter concessionaire bears the risk. So if you are transporting your meters and the vehicle gets into an accident, that's on you. But as soon as you install meters, the DISCOM backstops all the risk. So this is quite interesting. You don't really see this at other places. So even if there's a flood or any major calamity where a lot of your meters get knocked offline, your revenue stays protected. The DISCOM keeps paying you.
The other bit is it's rather unfortunate it's not infrastructure. Okay, what are the benefits of infrastructure? Prerna and I'll cover separately, but unfortunately it's not infrastructure. I think it should absolutely be a part of power distribution. And I think just last bit, they've also allowed foreign bidders, by the way, but it's safer to have an Indian bidding entity. We have put some research papers. If you get really, really bored of us, you could look at your desks. There are some papers which we've written, and we try to put in everything there. If you can just look at that, you can do the whole deal, by the way. You don't need us. So we are happy to be eliminated.